Hi there, and welcome to this Moz Academy lesson on the kickoff meeting as part of the client onboarding process. Actually, in this lesson, I'm going to recommend that you may need to hold more than one meeting at the beginning of the engagement to establish expectations, set goals, and go over the new client questionnaire. So it's really more appropriate to call this lesson the Kickoff Meetings, plural. You might be entrenched in every aspect of this SEO project from start to finish, but keep in mind that some stakeholders will only be present for the first kickoff meeting and maybe a few quarterly check-ins after that. So it's important for the kickoff to be a comprehensive overview of your agency, your work, and your goals. First, let's talk about the timing of these meetings. If you're going to split your kickoff into two parts, you'll want to hold a preliminary internal onboarding meeting, like we talked about in a previous lesson, first. The whole SEO team is invited to this meeting, in addition to any other important agency teams, and this is where you'll brainstorm ideas based on the materials you've asked them to look over already. At your first client kickoff meeting after that, you'll invite all client-side stakeholders, establish some project expectations, and do most of the work of introducing the agency to the client. You'll also present the communication plan that you created and the client questionnaire, and ask the client to fill that out and return it prior to the second kickoff meeting. Set a deadline that gives your team enough time to go over the questionnaire and discuss it. Your next internal meeting will probably need fewer agency stakeholders. Rather than inviting the entire SEO team to this one, you can involve only those who will have a direct impact on the project: the account manager, the SEO specialist, and perhaps any designers or developers who will be contributing. Here you'll go over the client questionnaire and hold a more concrete planning session to prepare for what you'll present to the client next. Your final kickoff meeting allows you to establish firm goals and a timeline for accomplishing them. This meeting also probably only needs to involve the key stakeholders in the project. The client's CEO may not need to be there, for example. Just your point of contact, and again, anyone on the client side who will be directly contributing to the project. Let's look at those two kickoff meetings in a little more detail. Now remember, the entire onboarding process is reciprocal and centers around these 5 priorities. Your kickoff meetings should go a long way toward accomplishing these priorities, and in kickoff meeting number 1, you'll focus primarily on establishing your relationship, sharing information, and instilling confidence. At this stage, a lot of the flow of conversation will come from the agency and be directed toward the client. Here's a sample agenda for your first kickoff meeting. Of course, you can adjust the timing and duration of each aspect, but these suggestions will help you keep it to an hour. Start with introductions, allowing everyone to state who they are and what they do. Then you can segue into the first draft of the communication plan you've created, which will allow each stakeholder to elaborate on their responsibilities and set expectations for communication. Next, state your agency's expectations around availability, approval, and turnaround, as we discussed earlier in the course. The next step is the biggest, letting the client know basically what you talked about in your recent internal onboarding meeting. Here's what we know how to do and our preliminary ideas about what we can do based on your budget, timing, what we've observed on your site, and what you told our sales team you wanted. Then you'll introduce the client questionnaire, asking them to respond with the information you've just provided in mind, and letting them know that their answers will help solidify your plans and set the stage for the second kickoff meeting. You can also clarify any included questions you think they might need help answering, or point out notes you've added to the document for clarification. Showing them where to upload their completed questionnaire is a nice transition to introducing the tools you'll use for collaboration, like your project management software. Show them how to log in if they haven't already, and make sure everyone has the access they need. Finally, establish next steps by setting a deadline for the return of the questionnaire, confirming the date of the second kickoff meeting, and maybe sharing the agenda for that second meeting in advance as well. Kickoff meeting number 2 focuses primarily on our other 2 priorities, addressing concerns and synchronizing goals, and allows most of the information to flow from the client to the agency. In our later lesson devoted to the client questionnaire, we'll go over what's contained in it and talk a bit more about the topics you'll address in that second internal onboarding meeting. However, devising a full SEO project plan with specific goals and milestones will also need to happen in this meeting or a series of meetings before you hold your second client kickoff. Creating that plan is its own topic. We'll cover how to identify and prioritize SEO KPIs, tasks, and goals in another Moz Academy course. For now, let's look at a sample agenda for the second client kickoff meeting. This one can involve everyone on the client side again, or it may involve fewer stakeholders, only the ones who will be directly involved in carrying out project tasks. You'll still want to leave a little time for reintroductions to remind everyone on both sides of each other's names and titles. Take some time to make adjustments to the communication plan you shared in the last meeting in case the client wants to make a change or the questionnaire brings to light some important communication triggers or stakeholders you weren't aware of before. The bulk of this meeting is spent on reviewing the questionnaire and establishing a project timeline. Go over the client's questionnaire answers and ask for any clarification you may need. As you move through the document, describe your proposed solutions to the problems they've stated. Then present them with an outline of the project as you see it at this point. Your timeline should include milestones based on the client's stated goals and what you deem to be plausible within the project's budget and duration. It should also include the dates you plan to submit important items for approval and the dates of the regular check-ins you'll have with the client, whether those are weekly, monthly, or on some other schedule. Finally, establish next steps. Give the client a deadline again for signing off on the project timeline you've just provided. Reinforce the next few items in your timeline, the date of your next meeting, and what they should expect to see from you in the next month. After all that, there is one more meeting you'll want to put on your calendar, and that's a 30-day check-in with the client. This meeting should be one-on-one. This is for the two primary points of contact, like the agency account manager and the client marketing manager, to connect, so that the agency can gauge how the client is feeling at this point. During this 30-day check-in, the agency has a few important goals. You want to share early wins and update the client on any progress made so far. You want to address any concerns they may have at this point. A month after the final kickoff call, do they still feel confident that they've made a good investment? Once these concerns have been addressed, you'll want to reinforce the communication plan and project timeline and ensure nothing needs to be adjusted. Doing this helps to maintain that expectation of communication between you and the client, reinforces your dedication to the project in their mind, adds a personal touch to the project by showing that the primary stakeholder is willing and able to address concerns, and most importantly, reduces churn. As with any relationship, nurturing it makes the connection stronger. Prioritize this meeting even if there's a larger scheduled check-in around the same time. This is meant to be a one-on-one opportunity for candid feedback and reassurance. The project kickoff can be nerve-wracking, but with clear agendas set and the right priorities in place, there's much less to worry about. See you soon in our final lesson.